from the post-millennial, we've got big news, ladies and gentlemen. Kamala Harris has agreed to finally do an interview. And it's such big news because Kamala Harris has not given one at all. So that the moment she decides to actually just talk to the press, it apparently is headline news. I'm not kidding. It's not just the post-millennial that wrote this breaking. It's being picked up. It's trending. Everyone's like, wow. But guess what? Tim Walz will be with her, and it's going to be with Dana Bash. So part of me wants to say softball interview, but that's not fair at all. It's going to be more like T-ball.
It's going to be more like powder puff.
Yeah. What's powder puff?
Powder puff. Like they're going to chuck little cotton balls at her, and she's going to be like, woo, look, cotton balls.
Well, she's probably going to rely
not even
on
the same realm as baseball.
No, I don't think there's any baseball going on here.
They're going to give her the questions in
advance.
It's
not even table tennis.
No.
And it's like...
It's just a photo op where she stands with the bat and pretends she did something. Meanwhile, her security blanket / emotional support dog, Tim Walz, is there to field any kind of questions, you know?
You should get like a little harness, and then they're part of the BDSM community. You know,
I'm sure that would help them.
Open about their
with their extraordinary base. Yeah. You know, the thing is, the last time she did an interview was late June, and she appeared with a Kentucky-based pro-abortion advocate who later appeared at the DNC. Mm-hmm. She has a really sad story. You know, she was attacked by her stepdad. It's really bad. But even then, that was the last time we heard from Kamala Harris in an interview setting like this, and she wasn't alone. You would think, you know, this person who wants to be president is going to appear solo, but she won't do that. That's how much she respects her voters. She'd rather put her own sense of emotional security first.
Not only a person, but according, to their logic, she's a strong woman of color who apparently can't do an interview without a white man sitting next to her. I mean, that's how they see the world, right? How does it look for them to be promoting this woman as a great leader and a woman of color, and yet she can't do an interview alone? It's honestly insulting.
That's a good point. I'm glad she's so pro-white men.
Yeah,
maybe that's good for the country.
I think it's so weird that she's showing up with Tim Walz.
And her husband is probably going to be there too.
Well, he's going to be in the green room, of course. He's going to be ready with a bag of Doritos, like any good man would be backstage, But yeah, I really think that it's sad that she needs someone to come hold her hand, that she needs someone to be there with her, that she can't show up and speak to this reporter who's already...
It's going to be an easy interview. It's
really
CNN.
Yeah. Well, and who's already ready to do whatever she wants. She's ready to just bend over for Kamala Harris.
Mm-hmm. So we were talking about
say something much worse and didn't say it.
You were mentioning how ABC is hosting the debate, and it's seen as this great victory, even though there are all of these interests behind the scenes that are obviously very political involved at ABC. Dana Bash is someone that I feel like doesn't get talked about enough, but I like to watch CNN a lot, actually, because it's where I feel like I can see the political theater being
That's like Steve
rehearsed.
Bannon says, watch MSNBC.
Yeah, you really. I learned when I worked in a TV studio, when I had all of the mainstream media playing, that you could kind of see where things were going just based on watching them. But Dana Bash, I know you broadcast a lot, Tim, but she's up there. I think she might give you a run for your money. She's always on CNN. I don't know what else she does with her life, but she's also someone who was married to the former chief of staff of the CIA. Bash, that's where she, Dana Schwartz is her name, but she took Bash, and is very, it goes back to this idea that there's a big family in the media.
Whether it's an incestuous relationship between the government and the media.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and all you have to do is watch Dana Bash to see that she doesn't even hide her allegiance to just the deepest core of the U.S. security state.
But this is crazy to me. It seems like the internet is what broke that machine. For the longest time, intelligence agents are former and current, and their families are working in corporate media. What was it? It wasn't was it Mockingbird? What was the Mockingbird where the intelligence agencies
Mockingbird.
Right. And that was the what were the name of the hearings where that was uncovered?
Church. No.
I don't remember.
Church Commission?
Was it?
I don't know. Anyway, long story short. It's fascinating that once we got to the internet era and independent shows were able to emerge that started rivaling or even beating the quality of these programs, the narrative's breaking. Donald Trump's victory in 2016 was not supposed to happen. The deep state was caught off guard. They legit were, you know what, it's fascinating. They were gargling their own waste in the media, Hillary Clinton has a 99% chance of winning, as they all were patting each other on the back and going, ho, 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 with their pinkies out. And then Trump won, and they were like, it's impossible. The only explanation is Trump's a Russian spy. That explains it.
Well, and then that totally undermined his foreign policy for his entire presidency.
It was by design because he'd already laid out that he wanted to shake things up and take on the established foreign policy, the blob, as actually that term came from Obama's former chief of staff or national security advisor, Ben Rhodes. He actually called it the blob because he was part of it. And yeah, Trump obviously ran on taking that on. And so they planted the seeds of Russiagate just in case. And I do think it wasn't just a domestic political play. It was to undermine his genuine attempts at diplomacy and good faith outreach to the world that I think are the aspects of the Trump presidency that should be commended the most. Like, I just don't understand why we can't have a president who wants to talk to the world and just make deals instead of sending guns around.
So We Are Change in the chat. Luke Rutkowski says it was the Church Committee in 1975. We got a super chat saying Luke is screaming right now. Well, Luke has every opportunity to come and hang out on the show and set the record straight on all of these things whenever he feels like it. So, but yeah, Church Committee hearings.
So we kind of got that.
MK Ultra was uncovered under that. I think COINTELPRO was in that as well as Mockingbird. Yeah, COINTELPRO.
And sometimes it feels like we talk about those programs as if they were something that happened in the past and were exposed, but
and then they stopped.
Yeah, you got to look around and wonder.
Yo, like if you're a millennial, your parents were alive when this stuff was going on. Like your parents were I don't know, probably teenagers or actually young adults. So this is very recent history. And I love that meme where it's like, well, we know the CIA did bad things in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and 2000s. There's been no reforms. Nothing has changed, but they certainly aren't doing anything bad now.
Yeah. What are they doing now?
Yeah.
We don't even really
we don't know. We're not going to
know. Oh, no. I think we know what they're doing now.
What are they doing now?
We don't know everything they're doing, but one thing I'd say is they're involved in perhaps like the indictment against Donald Trump or how about the 2 impeachments against him, which are also ridiculous and insane. I'd have to imagine that it's not just the CIA. What were they accused of recently? Where they came out and they're like, no, we have nothing to do with this. We're not involved. It was a big story, and people were claiming the CIA was involved in some kind of related to this. They claim that they don't do domestic work. It's only against foreign adversaries or whatever. It might have been J6. I can't remember.
Was it just the spying that was happening with Trump all throughout?
Yeah, I think it was related to activists getting spied on or something, and they said we only target foreign individuals or whatever. We don't operate within the United States.
Right.
But I'd be willing to bet it's not just that. We know the FBI is deeply involved in helping Joe Biden get elected. Here's my view. Super simple. For the longest time, television media was under the control of, even after the Church Committee hearings, we know about Mockingbird. We know that they're planting stories. We know that they're actually writing the stories and giving them to journalists to then put their names on them.
Yeah.
And even after 1975, it kept happening. The internet comes around and all of a sudden, independent voices, way too many of them, rise up and their narrative starts breaking. Trump wasn't supposed to win. Hillary was supposed to win. They were caught off guard, gargling their own waste. Trump ends up winning, and for 4 years, the system is fractured. The narrative machine of the deep state isn't working. The media is trying to lie, and it's failing. And now, what they did was colluding, getting Facebook to censor the Hunter Biden laptop story and the Burisma story. All of these efforts and the shadow campaign, as Time Magazine called it, to make sure Joe Biden won, and he did. And it now looks like they're holding on by a thread. They cannot maintain this. Their psychotic wars are failing, and it looks like Donald Trump is actually going to win.
Right.
But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Trump has won the argument, especially with RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard. But can he win the actual game? That's the question.
And can he win the vibe game? I mean, this is the thing that's really being pushed, and it takes a lot. I mean, we were just talking about previously believing things that it turned out to be not true at all. It's hard to break out of a mindset when that's all your friends are saying that, when it's all your family is saying that, when it's everybody at your workplace and that you come into contact with who is saying that. So it's hard for people to think for themselves, which is really a shame, but it is hard for them to do that. And so if those people who can't think for themselves and just go along with what all their friends say show up at the ballot box, I don't know if they're offering free mimosas or whatever, then they'll probably vote for Kamala Harris.
I think Trump won the vibe game. I think Trump won the vibe game and the argument. So for
He
people,
definitely won the argument.
he won the argument, no question. Again, especially with RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard, his argument is now we're a big tent party and we're trying to be accommodating and compromising to as many people as we can because we all agree we want to help America. Then you have the vibe. He's laughing. He's having a good time. And people on the street, when you see these men on the street interviews, are saying Trump's Trump, Trump, Trump. The question is, whatever the real campaign is to win, are the Republicans, is Trump prepared for that? So voting in the park, universal mail-in voting, ballot harvesting, that's vibe, feelings. None of that matters when procedure is against you. The question is, can Trump win procedurally?
Yeah.
Well, and he needs the RNC to step up and do their job.
One other
And states.
Yeah.
One point I would just make, since we were talking about the church committee and learning about how we were even able to learn or confirm what was true about our past, is that was possible thanks to Frank Church holding these committee hearings. Back then, he was a liberal Democrat who was anti-war. That used to be what the Democratic Party was, but now it's completely flipped, where the Democratic Party is actually the machine running the wars, trying to push us into confrontation with Russia. They've become the neocon party, even gone a complete 180 from my own lifetime when I thought, growing up, that the Democrats were the anti-war party. So it's just, I don't know how that happened. Does anyone else know how that happened?
So when Bernie Sanders, and it doesn't start here, but with Bernie Sanders trying to lead a populist leftist grassroots revolt in the Democratic Party, Donald Trump led a right-wing populist revolt in the Republican Party. Bernie Sanders is how would I describe him? Frightened and weak-willed. Mm-hmm. And Donald Trump is arrogant and hot-headed. So you take a look at what happens. Bernie Sanders of the popular base. I describe it as he shows up to the ivory tower and he knocks on the door and he says, "Listen, we got all these people behind me, and we say, I should be president." And then they just dump water on his head. He goes, "Whoa." And then he just stands there. Donald Trump walks up and goes, "Listen, we got all these people. You're letting me in." And then they start banging on the door, and they splash water. And Trump goes, "Don't you splash water on me," and then kicks the door in. Yeah. Trump gets pissed, says, "F you, no." Bernie Sanders says, "Please don't hurt me. Please, I'll stop." Mm-hmm. So what ends up happening is the neocons in the Republican Party lose their minds. All of these conservatives are never Trumpers, and they're like, "No, Trump is awful. He doesn't represent us. We don't want him here. We don't want him here." And then Trump wins, and they're like, "Okay, we have no choice. It's the best we can do." But these are the run-of-the-mill conservatives. The neocon establishment were like, "Screw that. Hillary Clinton." And so they jump to the Democratic Party. It's why you have Bill Kristol, right?
Yeah.
And people like him that are basically, we've got to restore the Republican Party. The Democrats are the closest thing to a warmongering elite that we have, so we're going to work with them for the time being. And you end up with the Democratic Party harboring the neocons. But come on, Hillary Clinton was like, she's a warmonger. She's one of the, she's the warmonger. You know what I mean? We can rag on George W. Bush and all these people, but Hillary Clinton is right up top.
Well, Bush, you kind of get the idea that he wasn't running the show. She was running the show, when she was at the State Department. She was ideologically committed. Bush was kind of just the idiot son that they put up as cover for Dick Cheney and Rumsfeld and all these other people that were the Hillary Clintons of that administration. And then Obama himself, I don't know how much I don't even want to talk about him, to be honest.
Obama. That's what they called him, Obama.
He's our true king running the show behind the scenes, right? He's going to get his 4th term with Kamala. So.
Yep. Yeah, indeed.
Why do you think it took him so long to endorse her?
Administration. The Obama era.
Maybe because, I think ideally they probably didn't want to run her, but it would have just been too anti-democratic to remove Biden and then Kamala. It would have just exposed the whole sham. There were those
reports that he wasn't going to endorse her for several weeks and ostensibly to let her have her moment in the sun, but the Clintons endorsed right away. So many other top Democrats did, and Michelle and Obama really held out. I do think that he is ultimately the kingpin for a lot of vibes from the Democratic Party, but it's interesting to me that he doesn't actually seem to like Kamala all that much.
Well, haven't you ever, seen a cartoon? The supervillain has lackeys, and the lackeys screw up, but the lackeys never get, fired or kicked out or whatever. The supervillain's henchmen will go and do something, ruin it, and then come back, and the supervillain's just like, "Well, okay, I guess." He's like, "You imbeciles," and he bops him on the head. That's it. Barack Obama didn't want Kamala Harris, but they're just lackeys. That's it.
But the Clintons did want her?
No, I think that Obama backed Kamala Harris becoming the nominee. Otherwise, she would not be the nominee.
Right.
And then I think that part of their deal was that they were going to wait a little bit before endorsing her so it didn't look like a coup, even though it did.
But instead it just made it look like he was the only high-ranking Democrat that wasn't that interested in her.
I don't know. I thought it looked entirely orchestrated because you had endorsement, wait a little bit. Endorsement from somebody else, wait a little bit. Here's a couple more endorsements. Here's Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries talking about it. Now the Obamas are on board. Don't you guys love the Obamas? You remember the Obamas? Now you're on board too because,
it was
Barack and Michelle.
wave.
Yeah, and I think that was an intentional orchestrated.
And it did allow them to control the media cycle.
And they controlled it. They did a masterful job of controlling the cycle.
Thanks for watching this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to check out the live show Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. on this channel. Subscribe and we'll see you all there.